Catholic schools that you oversee, what standard do they have to meet in terms of student outcomes, student achievement, in order to keep their accreditation? That would be, I mean, every public school district comes in to be able to tell you that.
Yeah.
Texas State Representative James Talarico, who is a Democrat and a former public school teacher, is asking questions about Governor Abbott's proposed voucher program that would divert public tax dollars to private education.
That's not my day-to-day job, is what I'm telling you.
You're the principal, sir?
I am.
So what is that standard that you have to meet to keep your accreditation?
I couldn't give you the exact score of a student. So, well, I mean, if you want exact scores, so students have to be, to be able to pass, students have to meet a passing score of 70 percentile.
So the student or the school has to be in the 70th percentile?
Now, this program has been shut down a few times in the past by the Texas House because of a rare instance of solidarity between Democrats and rural Republicans. Both groups have the same concern, that this program, which would offer families an $8,000 a year incentive to take their children out of public schools and put them into private schools, would, in fact, entice parents to take their children out of the public school system. Since public schools receive funding in large part on a per-student basis, this would successfully reduce the amount of public money allocated to public schools. And the overall problem with this is the obvious one, that public funds would be used to fund private endeavors. It's also frustrating because that money could and should be invested into the school systems that are already struggling. In the last legislative session, the Texas Congress failed to reach an agreement on school funding, and by the end of it, public schools didn't receive the money they desperately needed to give teachers raises or to balance their budgets.
You mentioned you don't want any harm or hindrance done to our public school educators or students, but do you see why all day long our public school educators came before us and talked about limited resources and stagnant or declining funding? And so why they would think that any effort to divert precious taxpayer dollars out of our underfunded public schools and into private schools would be a harm or a hindrance?
Sure. I mean, I understand that everybody feels like they don't have enough resources. I feel like I don't have enough resources.
Proponents of the voucher program like to tout the idea of school choice or parental choice, which is basically the right of a parent to choose where they want to send their child to school. However, that already exists, as Talarico points out. It's already possible to send your child to a school they're not zoned to within a district. It's also not unusual by any means that families move to specific locations based on which schools their children would attend, though admittedly that's not always an option for people. Homeschooling is an option, and of course parents always have the choice of a private school. If they choose a private school, then that's their prerogative, but they do so with the understanding that they are personally responsible for paying those tuitions and fees. They are choosing to accept those costs. The state is only responsible for funding public services like the public school system. Now, it's not exactly a hot take to say that the public school system is in trouble or even that it's already in shambles. And I'm not sure it's controversial anymore to say that Republicans are actively trying to defund the public school system and make it less attractive to everyday Americans because they want more students out of it. They've publicly supported homeschooling, private schools, and charter schools. They refuse to do anything about school shootings. They were a nightmare during the pandemic. They appointed a Secretary of Education who herself wanted to defund the system. They ban books. They ban entire lecture topics. They rewrite history. And actually just now, right here in Houston, the HIAC superintendent wants to eliminate school librarians and repurpose the school library spaces as team centers, which would really be disciplinary centers where misbehaving students are to be sent to watch their classroom lessons on a screen. All of this is allegedly being done in an effort to prioritize resources and raise achievement. But speaking of achievement, public schools are held to certain achievement standards, and they are accountable to the public for meeting those standards because they're funded by the public. Private school systems are not held to the same standards, nor are they expected to be publicly accountable because their funding is not public. Representative Talarico asked them about this accountability question, and they found themselves struggling to answer.
How many of the students have to meet that standard for you to keep your accreditation?
I don't think we have a requirement of how many students have to meet that.
Okay.
As far as I'm
I want to make
aware
sure the
of.
committee heard that.
He also brought up the issue of the STAR test, which is a standardized test that public students across the state are mandated to take.
I think everyone on this panel has said you don't want to take the STAR test, which I get. Nobody on the public side wants to take it either.
Nope.
I was a public school teacher in San Antonio ISD, did not want to take it for all the reasons you didn't want it. You don't want to take it, right? The same reasons that you're giving for not wanting to take the STAR test are the same reasons every public school educator gives for not wanting to take the STAR test. But they have to, because there are strings attached to public money, as Representative Bell just said. I mean, it's not our money, it's not your money, it's not even the kids' money. It belongs to taxpayers. And that's why there are strings attached. And maybe they should be better strings, and we should reform the strings. But that's why we're asking, if you want to take those taxpayer dollars, they're going to have to be strings attached. And I'm not hearing which ones you're open to.
Private schools say they don't want to take the STAR test, but the reasons they gave, according to Talarico, are all the same reasons why no one in the public system wants to take it either. Teachers, parents, and students have all been complaining about this test for years, and yet it remains. The solution to the STAR test isn't to just jump to a different school system that doesn't have it. It's to fix it, or find an alternative to it, or maybe just get rid of it in the public school system as well. Also, private schools have the right to accept or reject students from enrollment. This gives them an obvious advantage over public schools as far as performance metrics go. Not to mention, it doesn't say much for the adults who are advocating to deny children the right to what they believe is a better education. If private schools are picking out the students that they believe are most likely to succeed in their schools, their numbers will likely be better than those from the public schools. This will only feed the ongoing conservative narrative that public schools are beyond hope and beyond help. As Talarico puts it, it's like two football teams competing, but one team has unlimited timeouts and 12 guys on the field. It's got to be fair. Private schools can also reject students based on religious background, and we can only assume that systems like this one would only serve to further segregate society and isolate groups of people from one another. One of the beautiful things about public schools is that to a certain extent, it allows students to interact with a diverse group of people they may not otherwise interact with in their family lives, in their church groups, or even in their extracurriculars. Now, I will never not advocate for better public education because I really do believe it to be the backbone of any successful society. I think any child that is denied the opportunity of an education is a travesty, and I am grateful that someone like James Talarico, who again is a former public school teacher, is there in the Texas House. Now, I don't know how effective he'll be at actually swaying legislation one way or another, but at the very least, he's making it publicly known what Texas Republicans are trying to do. He's calling them out publicly and forcing them to say the quiet parts out loud, and in so doing, he's allowing them to demonstrate the flaws in their own thinking and their own planning. Alright, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like and subscribe, and be sure to follow me on all the socials. Thank you.